Hello and welcome to the I Know About Sports podcast. I'm your host, Don Arnold. It is Election Day, 2024, November 5th, 5 o'clock. The polls should be letting out here soon. And I've already voted. I voted like 2 weeks ago on a Saturday. So you don't have to worry about me not voting, okay? You don't have to come at me. I did my part. Hopefully you did your part. By the time you listen to this, you may know the election results. I don't know. Last time it took till Saturday to learn the results 4 years ago. But, yeah, first time I've ever been able to vote in a presidential election. Kind of cool, even though I live in South Carolina. So, realistically, my presidential vote, let's be honest, doesn't really matter. To say the least. It really doesn't matter. But one thing I do want to talk about with elections, I won't bore you with politics, is when I went to vote early in Winnsboro, South Carolina, we did it in the coroner's office. That's where the early setup was, which I found weird that you go to early vote in the coroner's office. It's something I didn't even know until I was literally filling out the ballot, right? Is that I didn't know a coroner was an elected official. I didn't know that until I was literally filling it out. And I found that weird that a coroner is an elected official. What I also find weird is that there was a party tag next to him, which means that we have a partisan coroner. How can a coroner be partisan? I don't know. And also, if there's multiple people, because it was only a one-man race. If there's multiple people running for a coroner's office, do they debate? Is there a coroner debate? What do they debate about? What policy differences does one coroner have versus the other? I would really like to know. What do y'all argue about between one candidate and the other? What makes one person a better coroner than the other? I don't know. I would like to find that out. But yeah, before I get into the show, I do want to give a fun fact about another coroner. In the state of South Carolina, the only person that can arrest a sheriff is the coroner. So the only person that can arrest the county sheriff is the county coroner. It is a law that dates back to the British. It's an old British law that dates back to the 12th century, so the 1100s. So a 900-year British law is still up and running in South Carolina, meaning the guy whose job it is to hang out with dead people all day is the only one that can arrest the sheriff. I don't know, weird stuff. It's going to be a mainly college football episode, but the first little bit, I'll just get into random, fast-paced stuff. Breaking to start the show, Ashlyn Watkins, the Gamecock star women's basketball player, had her charges dropped of domestic battery and kidnapping. Had those charges dropped. No word on a suspension yet, but more than likely there'll probably be some suspension coming for Watkins, but no actual charges are coming for her. So now the university will look to do whatever their punishment's going to be. They're going to do that probably here soon. I imagine by the end of the week. Yeah, because the next game is Sunday for them. So I imagine by the end of the week, we're going to know what Ashlyn Watkins' suspension looks like. NFL trade deadline was today. The Panthers freaking finally got rid of Jonathan Mingo. The Cowboys gave up a 4th-round pick for him. Apparently they've loved him since college. Freaking have him. Bye. One of the worst receivers I've ever seen. We traded up to get this bum. Drafted him in the 2nd round. He was terrible, like comically terrible as a wide receiver. Now we shipped him off Dallas for a 4th? We got a 4th out of that? That's more than what we got for Deontay Johnson, who's been a really good receiver, who we just sent off to Baltimore. Baltimore also today got Tre'Davious White from the Rams for a late-round pick. Until last week, when they announced Tre'Davious White was on the market, I didn't even know he was on the Rams. So there's that. So Jonathan Mingo goes from the Panthers to the Cowboys. Deontay Johnson goes from the Panthers to the Ravens. Tre'Davious White goes from the Rams all the way back across the country to the Ravens. The biggest trade of the day is, without a doubt, Marshawn Lattimore, the star corner of the New Orleans Saints, is being traded for a third and a fourth round pick to the Washington Commanders. The Commanders also get a fifth round pick as well, so it's Lattimore and a fifth for a third and fourth round pick. So a pretty good package, or a pretty good trade, all things considered, for Washington, who is now 7-2 on the season. They are by far in the driver's seat to win the division, and maybe they could even go far in the playoffs. And another thing is also a rookie scale contract with their quarterback. They can go all in right now with a rookie scale wage quarterback, and they can pay more for pieces around him. So, while Washington's making some very smart moves, very good moves, I don't think it'll be result in a Super Bowl this year or even a Super Bowl appearance. They may be able to go to the divisional, maybe even the conference championship game this year. I really like where Washington's heading, which all it took was one owner selling. Yeah, that's all it took. The Saints, they're in free-for-all. They're in a fire, so they're getting ready to go into a full-scale rebuild. They're 2-7. They've lost 7 in a row. They just lost to Carolina, probably the worst franchise in the league. And they also just fired their coach, Dennis Allen, which was long overdue. Yeah, I imagine the Saints are probably going to finish with a top 8 pick this year, maybe top 7. Derek Carr will more than likely be packaged off the offseason, or at least bought out a good bit of his contract. And the Saints are probably going to ready to go into a full-on rebuild, which is something that they have not done in decades. And another trade, last year I'll talk about Mike Williams, of course, former Clemson Tiger, national champion, one of the best college receivers I've ever seen, is now being shipped from New York, the Jets, to Pittsburgh. Move that's been long overdue, as A-Rod really just threw him under the bus on a pick that he threw that was really not Mike Williams' fault. But yeah, now Mike Williams, a fresh start in Pittsburgh. And so we'll see how that goes there. Yeah, moving on to the NBA. Joel Embiid with the 76ers, former MVP, has yet to play this season so far, has been suspended 3 games for shoving a journalist in a locker room, according to ESPN, after a game. Yeah, it's all looking downhill here for Philadelphia. They've gone all in with Embiid, who is never healthy. They just got Paul George. This team is, I really don't like the direction of the Sixers. They're kind of stuck in this pattern. And they're probably going to ended up being another year of a 6-7 seed, first round out, I imagine, in Philadelphia. Okay, they're in one of the toughest situations in basketball at the moment. Other thing with the NBA, Coach Popovich, for the time being, will be out with health issues for the San Antonio Spurs. Prayers to Popovich, one of the greatest coaches of all time, one of my favorite coaches of all time. Will be out for the foreseeable future with health issues. Hopefully he'll be back sooner than later. College basketball news. Season tipped off last night. Clemson looked really good against Charleston Southern. The women's team, new coach, Sean Poppy, looked really good in the day against Jackson State. Really didn't get to see this game. Herbie looked pretty good against the Tigers. Well, Tigers versus Tigers, But the Gamecocks struggled. We thought it would be an easy night for both teams, both programs. It was not. Carolina women struggled. They were in a dogfight in Vegas against Michigan. Chloe Kitts and Tessa Johnson completely bailed them out, carried them in this ball game. And granted, it's just game 1, and it's a cross-country trip on a Monday, the night before the election. So really tough luck of the draw for the Gamecocks out the gate, but still managed to get the win. That could not be said about the men. Oh, my God. They lost to North Florida at home. The North Florida Ospreys just beat an SEC team in their own building. and just were the better team all throughout. All the issues that we had with Carolina going in this year, all the issues we had after the Worcester game that I covered, the exhibition game, they just looks bad. Offensively, this team looks rough. They cannot hit a shot. CMB still looks like a pretty decent player, but I'm not sure how much he can really carry a team. And it's mainly just because there's no shooting on this team at all. They went 5 of 16 last night, and if I had the whole team line up on the beach, I'm not sure how many of them could hit the ocean. They were that bad at shooting. Just egregious with Carolina. They look sloppy on offense. They look like I know it's a transition year, it's a rebuild year after last year's veteran-led squad, but yeah, this is not the start you want. Granted, college basketball is a long season, right? And mainly how you do in conference matters a whole lot more than what you do out of conference. But this is a rough start for the Gamecocks right out the gate, losing to North Florida. Golly. Yeah, the quarter zippers had a rough night at Colonial Life Arena, to say the least. Just by far the most absolutely horrendously disrespectful thing that has happened in Colonial Life Arena over the last week. Wink to those that know. Moving on to college football, the main topic of this episode and show. Week 10, my predictions, I went 8-2. Very good. The only two I didn't get Clemson over Louisville. I will get to that. And I didn't get Iowa State over Texas Tech, which I kind of also figured. It seemingly seemed like Texas Tech was going to get the upset. I don't know why I picked Iowa State. I should have never trusted the Cyclones. I shouldn't trust the Big 12. It is just a roller coaster, just merry-go-round of a conference, just chaotic of a conference. But yeah, I'll get into the game I was at first. I was in the building at Williams-Brice Stadium when Carolina beat A&M. I rushed the field. My ribs still hurt. My hips hurt the morning after. Yes, I fell very hard. I tried to jump the barricade. People were shoving me to get up there, so I couldn't get a clean jump up there, and I got tripped up on the bushes and fell very hard on my rib cage, right in the end zone. So managed to get up, walk around just fine. Had a little party with all the couple thousand people down there. First time I've ever rushed a field, rushed any kind of court field as a sporting event. Because at Clemson, yes, I've been on the field and met the Paul. But if you go to Clemson, you know it's a lot more formal. It's a lot less chaotic. You know, it's not like a rushing, right? It's a lot more formal. It's a lot more organized. Yeah, when it's a rush to field, it's just it's free. It's a free for all. It is a free for all, and that kind of atmosphere, shoving, shoulder to shoulder, bumping everybody, having that. That's also the reason I have never been to the music festival. I don't know if I ever will. It was fun that one time because I know it was getting ready to end soon. And it was a sporting event, and people kind of cleared out fairly quickly. But, I could never go to a festival. I will die of claustrophobia. It was super fun getting to go on the field. I have a couple branches in my room hanging up on my dresser that I took from the bushes that were completely destroyed. I tried to take a couple stuff. I was hanging out with this, just happened to stay next to this dude who managed to steal the down marker, steal the chains. I don't know if he got out of the stadium, but that was fun. But yeah, just a incredible night, unforgettable night at Williams-Brice Stadium. One of the best atmospheres I've ever been to. The only atmospheres I think were better, obviously Clemson Louisville 2016 will never be topped for me. And the only thing that could get topped was a Clemson-Carolina game last year. And it wasn't because of the game or the atmosphere. It was just because me, as a Clemson fan, interacting with Carolina students in my Clemson stuff was an all-time night. But, yeah, getting on to the game, for whatever reason, the main media, a lot of the big time media, didn't pick Carolina to win this game, but every single fan said, yeah, Carolina's winning this game. Everyone around the country who wasn't involved in the media was like, yo, Carolina's winning this game. It's obvious. They're going to win this game. Like, A&M's a great team, but they just match up horribly with Carolina. They're catching them at the wrong time, and it's Williams-Brice at night, and A&M's playing with a freshman quarterback against the best defense in the country. They're going to lose. And that's what they lost. And that's what happened. They lost. The over-under for this game was 43.5. Which you don't know, that means the total for this game, was 43.5 points. That was what they expected both teams to combine for. Carolina scored 44 on their own. This game was 20-20 at halftime. They almost had that over-under in the first half. It was a lot more high-scoring than what I thought it would be. But Carolina's defense second half did shut out and shut freaking down A&M's offense. They couldn't move the ball at all second half. 25 rushing yards, that was it. They did nothing anywhere at all. Words cannot describe just how opposing of an atmosphere Williams-Brice is at night, especially in a big environment like that, especially when Laura Sellers is actually healthy. Which now I'm thinking if Sellers didn't go down and or the LSU game was that night, Carolina would have easily beat LSU just like they did here against A&M. Some of the stats here. The Gamecocks O-line had the worst pass blocking performance out of any team in the SEC last week, according to PFF. Think about this. They had the offensive line put up the worst pass blocking game out of the entire conference last week, and they gave up 0 sacks because Lenore Sellers was that good at escaping the pressure. Out of the 25 missed or broken tackles that A&M could not get on Carolina either broke or forced a miss on 25 tackles. Lenore Sellers made up 12 of those, and 8 of those were sacks. Meaning Lenore Sellers on his own broke 8 sacks. Yeah, he is a future superstar. He is going to be a future first-round pick, in my opinion. All he needs now is another year of development and an actual receiving core. He is the real freaking deal. Like, I don't think I've ever saw anything like that in my life in person. They could not. It was like whenever a high schooler manages to sneak on the Pop Warner team because he couldn't make grades for high school, which happened to me a couple times, when I would have to go up against the high schooler and, he's just manhandling them boys. That's what it looked like. Sellers was that freaking good. And so was the whole rushing team. 140 yards for Rocket Sanders. He was just bully balling A&M defenders. By the way, Sellers finished with 106. Yeah, Carolina just ran it down the Aggies' throats, who a week ago ran it down LSU's throats and dominated them at the line of scrimmage. That's just how good and physical this Carolina team is. They can beat any team in the country. Granted, they could also lose to any team in the country, but they can still beat any team in the country. Carolina now, as next 4 games are all winnable against pretty good opponents outside of Wofford, who is the free win they're going to have. Vanderbilt should be ranked. Missouri might be ranked. They shouldn't be, but they might be. And then Clemson, after they play Wofford, who they're going to beat, who is probably going to be ranked there too. Realistically, Carolina has a long shot chance at being a playoff team. I don't think they will be even if they win out, but there's a path to where they could be a playoff team. And the playoffs, who knows what could happen there. Speaking of playoffs, that's not where Clemson's going. I have yet to watch this game. I will never watch this game. One of the worst, people say it's one of the worst home performances ever. It's one of the worst coaching games in Clemson history. Maybe the worst coach game in Clemson history, which says a lot, especially over the last few years. Everything that we complained about, Clemson fans complained about for the last 3 or 4 years with the Tigers, is still happening, and it's happening at a more consistent level. Clemson just has less talent than other teams. You can simply put, they don't acquire talent the same way everybody else does. In the same way it's legal now to get. Because they refuse. Dabo refuses. They kept having Nepo hires. Dabo Swinney just keeps hiring his friends and former players as coordinators and on his staff. And it just makes a Nepo hire. It's just laziness. It's stubbornness by Dabo. And granted, if Dabo never changes his ways and stays a coach Clemson, we're never going to be a bad team, right? We're always going to be anywhere between 8 or 9 wins every year. But that's not the standard. I repeat, that is not the standard of Clemson football that we have set. We have won 2 national titles. We've been to the playoffs so many freaking times. We've been through so many national championships. We have been the class of college football outside of Bama over a 10-year stretch. And yet now we're just going to be a middling football team because one stubborn guy just can't get with the times. I'm tired. Either he has got to change his ways or he's got to get out. It is as simple as that. The standard has been, and granted, Dabo Swinney, he's the greatest coach Clemson history. He's one of the greatest college coaches of all time. The game has simply passed him by. And it's not even that it's passed him by and that's, he's gotten old, he can't keep up. So that's happened with some coaches, right? No, it's that fact that he refuses to change with the times. It's not that he's, it's like a coach, or a player, gets older. No, he simply just refuses to change. It's on him. And you see, right down here in Columbia with Carolina, they have a young, hungry head coach who just simply coaches and plays with Carolina the same way everybody else coaches and plays with their program to get players, talent, coaching staff changes, and whatnot. And you see, Beamer is not afraid to make staff changes when he has to. He has shown that. He is not afraid to make changes to his staff. Clemson is. Dabo is, because he doesn't want to hurt his friends' feelings. Stuff has got to change. Change in Clemson. But yeah, moving on to the playoff eliminator for this week. We'll start with the group of 5. We'll start with teams who are still alive to start this week. We're going to start Louisiana Raging Cajun on a Tuesday night. They still came out as a long shot. They have 1 loss on the season to Tulane, and they hung on, and I mean hung on the road against Texas State to pull off the win. And that's it. Louisiana, only 1 loss on the year, 7-1. The Raging Cajuns, still long shots, but they are still very much alive through week 10 of the college football season. Talk about the team they lost to. The other in-state Louisiana team, Tulane, on Halloween night, went to the Queen City to play Charlotte, who were upset hungry after losing that heartbreaker to Memphis the week before. And the Green Wave, everything said they were getting ready to get upset. It's Halloween night on the road, very spooky, against a well-coached team in Charlotte who was upset hungry, and they just throttled the 49ers. They freaking killed them. And they handled business. So Tulane, 2 losses on the season. We're both out of conference to Power 5 teams in K-State and Oklahoma. The Green Wave remain unbeaten in American Conference play and survive another week of the playoff eliminator. They remain alive for another week. Moving out west, Boise State is by far the front runner for the group of 5 level. They had another dominant showing, 56-24 on a Friday night against San Diego State. In the last AP poll before the playoff poll gets announced in about an hour and a half for the first playoff rankings. And that's, out of everything that's going to happen tonight, November 5th, 2024, those important results that are going to come out is the playoff rankings. Right? I can't think of anything else that happens today that's going to be more impactful. Can't think of anything. But yeah, the Broncos finished 12th, so we're going to see how they stack up in the playoff polls. Genty remains the front runner for the Heisman, put up a $150 and 2 touchdowns against the Aztecs. Moving back out east, northeast, West Point, New York, Army remains unbeaten, and they're right behind Boise State for that Group of 5 spot. They had a hard-fought win, 20-23 against Air Force. The final score doesn't indicate how close this game was. This was a very close game against the Air Force Falcons. Army-Air Force classic matchup. The Knights moved to 8-0 and number 18 in the AP poll. We will see how they stack up in the playoff poll coming up here in about 90 minutes. Memphis came into this week after surviving against Charlotte at home the week prior. The Tigers had no room for error for the remainder of the season, and they got beat down on the road in the Alamo Dome against UTSA. 44-36 doesn't indicate how much of a blowout this game was. I mean, UTSA just ran all over and just dominated Memphis from start to finish. So it's now the second time that a team from Memphis has now gone into the Alamo and just got dominated by the locals. Tough scene. Navy, the week prior, they got battered and bruised and humiliated by Notre Dame. Granted, it probably eliminated from the playoffs that lost Notre Dame. But losing to Rice also, by double digits, also, that officially eliminates the midshipmen from the playoffs. So Navy is now out. You can't lose to food and expect to make the playoffs, kids. As I repeated, Navy lost to Rice, their second straight loss. They are out of the playoffs, in my opinion. They're done. The Power 5 ranks, that was all, by the way, of the teams I'm thinking the Group of 5 level that are still alive for a playoff spot at the moment. If I had to rank them, Boise is obviously the best Group of 5 team at the moment. They're obviously the front runners. Army's second. And then I would personally say now, I would say Tulane sits at third. And it realistically only about 4 teams remain because we just knocked out Memphis and we just knocked out Navy officially. So it comes down to Boise, Army, maybe you hear that train in the background. Boise, Army, Tulane, and Louisiana. So those are the 4 teams that are still left. There is still maybe a long shot for UNLV. I don't think so, but those are the 4 teams still left in the Group of 5 level, vying to be the first Group of 5 team to make the playoffs under this new era, the 12-team era. They have a guaranteed spot this year. Power 5 ranks, didn't see any teams get bounced out officially per se because, if you win your conference, you're in. So unless you're officially eliminated from your conference contention, you're not really eliminated from the playoff contention. So even though Iowa State and Kansas State got upset, they could still both easily win the Big 12, go on and win it and make the playoffs. As I said, the Big 12 is going to be chaotic. It's been chaotic all year, which we love. Pittsburgh got throttled and bashed against SMU. They're probably out, but as I said, if they win out and have some stuff happen in front of them, they could still make the ACC championship game 11-1, and then maybe even win that game, go on to the playoffs. So Pittsburgh, even though they got freaking killed, are still very much alive. But now, granted, are they going to make it? Yeah, probably not. But hey, they are technically still alive. Beauty of this new playoffs. And hey, if the Pittsburgh Panthers go into Bank of America Stadium and make the playoffs in that stadium, it's the first time a Panther team has punched their tickets to the playoffs in Bank of America Stadium since 2017. So huge if that were to happen. Very big. But a team they're probably done before this week, but now I can officially put them on the eliminated, the Duke Blue Devils played their hearts out against Miami, just like they did against SMU the week prior. The Blue Devils played their hearts out. It just wasn't enough. Suffered their third loss in conference, third loss on the season total. And that eliminates them from ACC championship contention. It means they're eliminated from the playoffs. So, yeah, Duke, great year. Great first year under Manny Diaz. But just not enough. And they can still make a great bowl game. They're still bowl eligible. 6-3. They're going to make a bowl game. Now, how good of a bowl game they would make, we don't know. But in terms of the playoffs, they're done. So, congrats, Duke, for making it all the way to Week 10. Congrats, Duke. That's all that's going to do on this episode of the podcast. Pretty short episode. I have a bunch of work to do still. It's election night. Is return of the Maction. Hell, Maction's back, baby. So, yeah. Stay safe. Don't post anything too stupid. Don't act anything too stupid. Don't go out and try and storm a Capitol. Don't do that. Don't burn a flag unless it's a torn flag. Don't throw a flag away. I don't know. There's an official thing how you can get rid of flags. I don't know the code. Don't do none of that. Don't post nothing stupid online. Don't do none of that. Don't go try and go to a basketball game. And all right, thank you all for listening. Follow me on my LinkedIn's, my Linktree, Twitter, Instagram, all that. And I love you very much. Very consensually, very much love you. And that's not even an exaggeration. Bye-bye. Mwah.